Hey guys, this is Kennedy Curley and Hayden Klinkhammer on the other side of this call. Today is going to be a big football talk. So college football, the NCAA top 25 has been released in AP polls, and so we're going to dive in a little bit on that, and we're also going to talk a little bit more about the Dallas Cowboys. I know we talk about the Cowboys a lot. We are from Dallas, so give us a little bit of a break there. But Jerry Jones had some recent things to say here, and we're going to talk a little bit about that and kind of just react to that. But today is a big football day for us, and hopefully it's going to fly by a little bit because we have college football is going to start up here pretty soon. Actually, I know my Aggies play on Thursday, the 29th, I think. Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
Who?
That's Texas A&M, number 12, baby.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so, but so to go ahead and start things, actually, before we do this, follow us on Twitter at Lunch Sports. Follow me at Kennedy Curley 44. Follow Hayden at That Boy Clink, capital T, capital B, capital K.
Good job.
Yeah, there we go.
Let's go.
But yeah, go ahead and give us a follow. Post at us, DM us, whatever you want. Talk to us about sports. We love it. And also just go ahead and get ready to see us kind of battle it out between each other. But other than that, let's go ahead and get into this. Reactions on top 5. You what?
I said I have a feeling you're gonna come after me on Twitter after this episode.
No, maybe I will, but I don't know. We'll have to see. I don't know, but let's go ahead and react to these top 25.
Mm-hmm.
One of my first thoughts on this actually was, you mentioned before we started this that Stanford plays UCF, and UCF is at 17 and Stanford is at 25.
Mm-hmm.
And so my thought was, if Stanford has a reasonable season and UCF goes undefeated again, could we see UCF going into the playoffs? Or
No. LSU proved that last year.
What happened?
That's who we played in our bowl game, and we pretty much controlled the entire game until the very end, and they made it close. But that was their whole claim, was that they deserved to be in the playoff, but they couldn't even beat LSU.
But see, that was my thing is with that. That was already after they decided the college football playoffs. So also that was last year. So the argument for them not making it in the first place last year was that their strength of schedule was bad because their out of conference games aren't that good and they don't convince anybody when they're beating teams like, I'm looking at their schedule, it says FAMU.
Yeah.
I don't know who that is. Then you have Florida Atlantic.
So their only ranked opponent is Stanford, and they're number 25. And yeah.
Houston, I guess, could be if they beat Houston. Houston has a semi-decent season, but I don't know how good is USF supposed to be this year? Because I know they were good a few years ago.
I can't remember what South Florida looks like. Hang on, I wonder if do they still have
Charlie Strong?
No, the QB. No, he's gone. The scrambler. So I don't know a whole lot about them. They have a young quarterback group. Blake Barnett.
He's at USF?
Oh my God. Blake Barnett is at USF.
How about that guy?
What?
Oh, to be fair,
he played last year?
No, he probably sat out last year.
No, he played.
Did he really? They went 10-2.
I'm looking at his stats. He threw 12 touchdowns, 11 interceptions.
Wow. What year is he in now? Because I know he had to sit out.
He's a senior now.
He's a senior this year?
Yeah.
Okay.
Blake Barnett. Oh my God. What a name. What a throwback to high school.
Yeah. Dang.
Holy cow. That's crazy. Sorry. If you guys don't know, we had journalism together with someone who was on this podcast before, Jacob Barrier, and he was a huge Alabama fan. And this is when Blake Barnett was like, supposed to be the next big quarterback at Alabama. And then he lost the job, and I literally had heard nothing about him since. But
yeah. Well,
wow.
So I guess my line of thinking, this is a stretch, but this ties into my reaction, is that if UCF can beat Stanford and Stanford puts up a 9-3 win season, USF say puts up a 10-2 or an 11-1 season. They went 10-2 last year, and I think the year before they were a 1 or 2 loss team.
Yeah.
So if they could do that again, and then I don't know, say Houston or some other respectable wins, I don't think that they would probably get into the college football playoffs. But I got to think that it's at least more of a conversation than it was the last 2 years, because we haven't seen them play against a Stanford, type program.
Yeah.
But I don't expect Stanford to really be that good, to be honest.
Yeah, I think Stanford being at 25 is more the fact that they have the toughest, non-conference schedule according to the NCAA.
Yeah, which
more than anything.
I'm not entirely sure that they say that.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I know some of who are the teams on their schedule again?
They play UCLA, those are all in their conference. Out of conference is Notre Dame, so that's probably the big one.
Okay.
That's probably the big one. Northwestern, who's always pretty good, but I think that's it for.
And UCF.
UCF, yeah.
Okay, so they do have a pretty good.
Yeah, it's a tough schedule, but also they play in the Pac-12. I mean, I could see them going 9-3. I think relatively easily. Their losses coming against Notre Dame, against Oregon, and sure we'll throw in against UCF. So 8-4 actually, because I think they lose to Washington too. But
yeah, that's fair. I could see absolute max. I think for them would be like 10-2, but I don't think.
Yeah, I would say that's the max for sure.
Yeah, I think 8-4 is probably what I would expect them to do.
Yeah.
But let's see.
Not good enough to be in the top 25 at the end.
Not in that conference.
If you lose 4 times, unless you're an SEC team or
even Big Ten.
Yeah, maybe Big Ten. Then I don't really think you deserve to be in the top 25. But I guess it depends.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I don't know that there's really much else to react on this, other than A&M at 12 was a little surprising to me, only because they I'm looking at this. So I'm an Aggie. My first thought was to look at where A&M is, and you play Clemson, Alabama, and Georgia. You play at Clemson, at Georgia, versus Alabama, and then at LSU. That's 4 of the top 6 teams according to this. So I am a little surprised that they started them at 12, because I think.
Do they win any of those games?
Do I think that they'll win any of these? I think they'll win one of them, but I don't know which one it is. That's a little optimistic of me too. If I were to rank the teams that I think they have the best shot at beating, this actually may surprise you, but I'll say LSU as the highest chance to win, only because I don't think LSU is as good as Clemson or Alabama.
Well, yeah.
Or Georgia, but that's a little closer.
Yeah, I would say that's closer. We beat Georgia last year, but it took. Our kicker went like 6 of 6 and made like 3 50-yarders. So I mean, it was a I agree. Out of those 4, I would definitely say LSU is definitely the easier win.
Yeah,
but
and then I would say second, and this is going to shock you, but I actually think Alabama. I think is the next team that I would say A&M has the best chance against, because
it's at home.
It's at home, yeah. And Alabama, for as great as they are beatable on the road, and a lot of the time even they choose their toughest teams to play at a neutral site. So a few years ago, they played Florida State in Jimbo Fisher's last season. It was the 1-3. Florida State didn't end up being that good, but it wasn't at Florida State. It was some, I think it was in Dallas or
It
some,
was,
I don't,
It was at Cowboy Stadium.
Yeah, and so they've had other games like that where they play against a top team, like Louisville was another one of those teams.
Yeah.
A tougher team on the road, but it's at a neutral site, so it's on the road for the other team. But when they actually play at a true road site, normally they struggle a little bit.
And let me say this. People are so high on Tua, and I think he's a great quarterback. But I don't think he is as flawless as a lot of people like to act like he is.
Yeah.
I think he struggles with more throws than people want to give him credit for. But their receiver group is absolutely insane. That I honestly, Jerry Jeudy literally could be, another top 10 Alabama wide receiver pick.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of guys on there that will give issues, plus the fact that their defense is always going to be legit.
Yeah.
And again, I would say if they don't have the best coach in college football, they have the second best coach.
Yeah, definitely I'd say the best of all time. So there's at least still that.
Yeah.
But I think that with them, they are going to be, I think, the best team in the SEC, but I also think that they're not unbeatable, and especially on the road for them, at home for A&M. So I think with that, plus Kellen Mond having, I think, he had a bad first year, decent second season, but he really improved between those seasons, and if he can improve again, which I'm hearing that he is, I think that they could at least make for an upset against Alabama at home. I say that because 2 seasons ago when they had the most talented what was the team that had the most talented team, quote unquote?
That was
Jalen Hurts was on that team, right?
That was 2 seasons ago.
Okay, yeah. So A&M actually only lost to Alabama by 8 that season, and that was with a freshman Kellen Mond. Kevin Sumlin was on his last season. They ended up winning, I think, 7 games on the year. And so I think that this team at home could end up making it at least interesting with Alabama. The third team I would say on that list would be Clemson, only because Clemson is one of those teams that they get hot as the season goes on. But they don't normally start super great at the beginning. And then Georgia, I think they don't really tail off. Their talent is better than A&M's. I feel like the SEC, they're A&M, Alabama, Georgia, they're all kind of similar, but just Alabama and Georgia are a little more talented than them. But Georgia is at Georgia. A&M's never played there, at least none of the guys on this team. So I think that they'd be the toughest one at the end of the season, especially after playing at LSU. So that's my list of who I think are the toughest on that schedule for A&M. Sorry to take a lot of time on that.
They played Georgia the week before LSU.
Is it before?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So
okay. either the Georgia game becomes a trap game, or they go into hopefully what I would say is that I think I would say I definitely say Georgia is the toughest team just because of who they played the next week, especially with how testy the game got last year between LSU and A&M.
I'm going to the game this year. I'm kind of scared. Not gonna lie.
See, let me say something. I would make that trip with you.
You would make that trip with me?
Yes, especially since it's at Baton Rouge.
Honestly, man, if there was a way for us to get another ticket, I would completely. I would get you that ticket. Not with my money, you'd have to pay for it. But
well, yeah.
But like, I would think that would be super fun. Might punch you in the face at some point, but you could be my bodyguard. I'm ready to get spit on. I'm ready to get spit on. I'm going to be completely honest.
Yeah,
I'm ready for it. I might get some food thrown.
We're not exactly the nicest, most respectful crowd.
I'm cool with it. Like, y'all are very passionate. I respect it.
Yeah.
I just need to go in with the right mindset, knowing what I'm getting myself into. You know.
Yeah.
At this point, I'm just accepting it.
Be very wary. Like seriously.
I
That
love golf.
I wish I could say we're really respectful. Now they serve alcohol throughout the entire stadium. So yeah,
Okay.
just keep your head on the swivel. That's what I would say. But yeah, I could definitely see Georgia being the toughest game, just in case the A&M guys look ahead to that LSU game.
Yeah, I can see that. Well, do you want to start our underrated, overrated
Yes.
of the top 25? Okay, so we're going to come up with 3 teams who are underrated and overrated. I think we should go ahead and start with overrated. Actually, would that be fair? Start negative, go positive.
That is beautiful.
And that's great. I'm a glass half full type of guy, so I think we should start empty, go full.
Okay.
Well, my number 3 is Oregon. Not that impressed with Oregon, but
overrated.
yeah, and I don't know if I really see them as overrated as far as standings go, but I see them as I don't think that they're going to be a threat to make it into the top 4. I think looking at their schedule, you have Washington on that schedule. You have Stanford. You actually start off with Auburn, who I'm not super thrilled about them either, but that's still a SEC team.
Exactly.
Very first game of the season, so you don't know who's gonna start off hotter. Washington State's still up there. Oregon State. I mean, they're. I think they have enough trap games on their schedule, and I'm not overly thrilled with their coaching or the talent just yet. They're recruiting well now, but I'm not entirely sure that other than Justin Herbert, I'm not that thrilled about Oregon. Good quarterback. The rest of the team is a little suspect, and the coaching isn't elite in my opinion. So they're my number 3, but I could see them matching their ranks, so that's why I don't have them higher. But they're my number 3. Should I go number 2, 1, or do you want to go 3?
Maybe you should go number 2 and number 4.
Okay. Well, funny enough, I mentioned Auburn, but they're my number 2. I'm not actually thrilled about Auburn either. You lose Jarrett Stidham. I'm not entirely sure what the next quarterback's going to do. They weren't really all that great last season, to be honest. Actually, they were very underperforming, and their coach has been on the hot seat pretty much every season other than that one year that they upset Alabama. I think that was 2 years ago, right?
No. That was when they went to the national championship.
Well, yeah, but 2 years ago they did beat Bama.
Yeah, that's right.
And they were a 2-loss or 3-loss team that was in the top 4, and then I don't remember exactly what happened, but they didn't end up going to the playoffs, and then they lost to UCF, so they became a 4-loss team that season. And so that was the one season that their coach actually seemed to get praised, but other than that, he's always been on the hot seat, and I just think that you lose enough pieces, or at least at quarterback. I'm not super excited about Auburn's chances this season. I think that at most they win 8 or 9 games.
Yeah.
So they're my number 2 overrated team, and then my number 1's actually Florida. And I say this with a little bit of sadness because I actually like Florida. I was a big Florida guy when Tim Tebow was there. You had Urban Meyer was a coach there, and you had such an elite team with Percy Harvin and the Pouncey the brothers, and this whole team of NFL players pretty much. On top of that, you also had a basketball team that was elite at that time, so that's what made me really like them, and I still like them to this day because they were so fun for me to watch then. But now I'm just not seeing it. I know that they have 3 guys who I believe have been suspended.
They're always in trouble with stuff like that. I feel like
something like that. Mullen is a good coach. I'm a little curious to see how the progression goes with Felipe Franks, but I'm struggling to see why they're a top 10 team, to be completely honest with you. They weren't exciting last year, and they didn't really add any pieces. Maybe I guess they didn't lose too many guys, but you still have to play Georgia. And you still, if you beat Georgia, you still have to win the SEC in order to become a top 4 team. So I see them. They could, I guess, theoretically be like a 10 to 15 team in the AP top 25, but I just can't. When you're 8, I'm thinking, okay, maybe you have a chance to make it into the college football playoffs, and I just don't see them having a chance in the college football playoffs. So they're my most overrated team. Not saying they're bad. I'm not even really saying that Oregon is bad. I think Auburn is kind of bad, but they're ranked lower than both of them. So that's my order: Florida 1, Auburn 2, and Oregon 3.
My friend, let me just start off before I say anything. I am very sorry.
Go on.
At number 3, I have Texas A&M.
I knew it was coming.
Number 12 in the country. Interesting. Number 12, really? I'm struggling to understand this one a little bit. Let's see here. Mr. Kelly Mond.
Kellen Mond.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Kellen Mond. 57% completion percentage?
You know who had a 57% completion percentage last season?
And he's supposed to be able to what?
Joe Burrow also had a 57% completion percentage.
You're right. You're right. You are completely right. And we'll get to that.
Okay.
All right. 24 touchdowns, not bad. I like his touchdown to interceptions ratio.
Thank you.
Number 12 seems a bit high to me just because of who they have to play. Because I still have them losing 4 games. So, again, did Sternberger leave?
Yep.
He was a senior, right?
No, he could have stayed, but he left.
Oh, for the draft?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Also, my boy, Eric McCoy, is gone. That's a big deal. You lose your best offensive lineman. You lose your top receiver from last year by quite a bit. You already have a guy who's not exactly the best thrower. He's a decent runner. I'll say he's explosive. Let's say that. On the defensive end, I wasn't really impressed with A&M's defense, and I used to think that was the reason that they would be able to compete in the SEC, but I just.
So can I tell you my opinion on Texas A&M? I want to respond to you because I don't actually think that. I almost had A&M as one of my overrated teams. Maybe I'd have them in the 4 or 5 range, but the only reason I didn't was because I do think that they have at least a chance to beat one of those 4 teams that I mentioned earlier. Maybe they won't. I don't think they'll beat all of them. I doubt they beat 2 of them, but I do think that they will pull off an upset against one of them. I'm gonna put
you on the spot right now.
Okay.
You have to make a pick of who they beat. Go. I hope you say it. I hope you say it.
Okay, let me think about this for just a second.
Yeah. Take your time.
I'm gonna take my time. All right.
We want all of the viewers to hold him to this.
Texas State is a win. Clemson, I'm gonna say, is a loss. Lamar is a loss. Auburn's a win. Arkansas is. Hold on. Who are they going to beat? Is that what you're asking? The only team I just don't see them beating is Georgia. I will say I'm not going to pick LSU, but I think by chance that's the best team that they have a chance against.
No, you gotta pick one of the four.
I know. This is really hard, Hayden. I know you're putting me on the spot. This is very hard. I might actually go with Clemson early. But I say that now. I reserve the right to pick to change my pick.
Wow.
But I might go with Clemson right now.
So the defense that couldn't stop Joe Burrow last year is gonna go
in 7 overtimes. They allowed 7.
Exactly. Thank you.
They played fine in regulation. It wasn't like they were bad.
Hang on. I wanna look at this.
The defense last year. Look, I think you're a little hard on that defense. They were one of the top rushing defenses in the league. I think they allowed the 4th least rushing yards. Their secondary was a little suspect, but it wasn't pathetic.
So they're gonna stop Trevor Lawrence at Clemson.
Yeah. If I'm picking one game right now.
Wow, that's what you went with. That game.
You know what? No. I'm telling you, this is really hard. So I hate that you put me on the spot. I'm gonna switch it.
Okay.
I'm gonna switch it. LSU. LSU is the one I'm gonna pick. I'm gonna be there, man. I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna be yelling my butt off. I'm gonna lose my voice. I'm not super scared about Joe Burrow.
I wouldn't be scared about Joe Burrow either. You want to know why I would be scared of?
Who's the running back?
You want to know what I would be scared of?
Who?
Death Valley.
I get it.
Night.
I get it.
It's a night game, correct?
We won't know until then, I don't think, but.
Oh yeah. They only release stuff for 2 weeks. Yeah.
But no. So my response to Texas A&M, I just want to make this clear. So Eric McCoy was a big loss, but they also come in with 4 returning guys on the linemen.
Oh, so, they returned all 4 outside of Eric?
Yeah. So they have other guys outside of him.
All right.
They're bringing in, I believe, the top offensive lineman in the state. He was a top 10 prospect, I believe, Kenyon Green. Mm-hmm. He's actually committed to LSU, and I just want to throw that out there.
I know.
And so he is expected to start, which actually surprises me because there were actually guys that I thought I would have been perfectly comfortable with them starting this season who've been in the program for a few years. So this guy's really talented. I'm not going to say I expect a perfect season from him, but 1 freshman starting and 3 returning juniors, all who actually had 4 returning juniors, all who were pretty solid last year. I think that offensive line is going to be pretty good. Losing Travion Williams isn't that big of a deal in my opinion because running back is a little bit easy. Jashawn Corbin played really well. You had a former 5-star who was sitting out all last year, and Cordarian Richardson. He'll be playing this year. Mm-hmm. There are a few other guys on the team who are all pretty good guys who are going to be rotational guys.
Who's Jacob Cabote?
He is a running back who didn't play last year, but I honestly don't know why because he was actually pretty athletic. But I just think that Travion Williams is. Yeah, he's from Louisiana.
Yeah, Baton Rouge. I thought that was
really
interesting. Yeah, I didn't remember hearing anything about him. So
yeah, he's solid. I wouldn't expect him to start for A&M at any point, but I think that he'll get some touches.
Rotational,
Yeah, they have depth at running back. Wide receiver, no one changed. Tight end, you did lose someone, but tight end's not an essential position.
I agree with that.
I'm actually more worried about the defense because linebacker was good last year. It wasn't very deep, but it was good. And then you lose both Ataro Alaka and Tyrell Dodson. So those were 2 really good linebackers.
That last one will hurt.
Tyrell Dodson was so good, man. I love that guy.
That last one will hurt.
The defensive line will be great. I'm a little suspect on the linebackers, but I'm a little more worried about the defense. But my point being, I think that A&M's offense will actually be quality. Defense is up in the air, but I think the offense will at least keep them in one of those games. And that's the only reason why I have A&M as a properly-ish rated team, maybe they'll fall a few spots back. But losing 3 of those games probably puts you in about, I don't know, 15 or so. If you beat one of those top 6 teams.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I respect your opinion, so I'm not going to sit here and say you're wrong.
It was difficult because, again, like you said, I actually like Kellen Mond, whatever his name is.
Uh-huh.
The bum who dared. Okay, we're not even gonna get into that.
My boy.
I like him as an athlete, especially in college. You don't have to be the greatest thrower to be a successful college quarterback. But yeah, 12 was a little high for me.
Okay.
Well, 12 was a little high for me because. So wait, what game did you pick?
I changed it to LSU. I wasn't prepared for your question. I'll be completely honest.
Guys, he picked LSU. I'm so excited. I have to wait. Oh, I have to wait till literally December, basically.
Pretty much.
Bummer. Oh well.
Well, who's your number 2 team?
My number 2 is also Oregon.
Okay.
We just talked about this before the podcast. Their coaching to me is really actually underperforming. Again, we talked about, Justin Herbert's really talented. So at the same time, for me, it's like you got to at least be able to turn that into something. You're in the Pac-12, You play Auburn. I'm pretty sure they'll beat Auburn the first week of the year. They go to Nevada. That's a win, blah, blah, blah. At Stanford will be tough. They'll lose at Washington, I'm pretty sure.
Yep. Chris Peterson's too good of a coach, I think.
Yeah, exactly. I just think they're going to get outcoached. I don't think it will have any effect on Justin Herbert. I think Justin Herbert will have, again, another good year. To me, it's a little frustrating to see him complete only 59% of his passes. But I think a lot of that has to do with, I think they struggled a lot with drops last year. And really, they only had one guy, Dylan Mitchell, at 75 catches. Everyone else, the second most was 38. So we'll see. I don't know. I'm not sold on them at all. Yeah.
I agree.
I think them being at 11 is quite high, and I definitely think it has something to do with how high Justin Herbert is supposed to go in the draft.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much the only reason, because I personally think when it comes down to it, I think the coaching of Washington is going to probably have them as the best team in the Pac-12 again.
I agree.
I think that Oregon could be up there, but once again, the best team in the Pac-12, I have them. I think that's a little overrated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And also at number 1 is a team I can't stand. I know you like them, but I absolutely cannot stand them. Is the Florida Gators. How they're so blasphemous. I cannot stand Florida fans who try to claim that they're DBU. That makes me want to vomit. That makes me want to vomit. That's a joke. Yeah. Also, they have the quarterback who, for his entire life, was committed to us, and then all of a sudden on signing day ditched. So that plays into it in Felipe Franks, who has never really turned out to be anything special anyway. All of a sudden, everyone is so high on him this year. They play Miami, which I think that will be a tougher game than a lot of people realize. At Kentucky, which I think will be a tougher game than a lot of people realize. They have to come to Baton Rouge. They play Georgia and they go on the road to Missouri, and then they finish the season against Florida State. So I just number 8 is really high for me. It's really high for me. I feel like they always get rated so high and then they just underperform. So until proven otherwise,
Yeah. I'll say LSU is a loss at LSU. Georgia's a loss, even at home. And I'm not really that big on Miami.
I'm not either. I'm just saying. I
Tate
think
Martell.
Yeah, that's a joke.
Yeah, that's funny.
I'm saying I think it could be tougher than people realize.
Yeah.
Because of how negative Miami has been in the press, I think a lot of people are expecting them to be like bad, and I don't know if I'd go that far. I honestly have them winning the ACC. Maybe Virginia Tech. Wait,
you mean like their division? Their side of the conference?
Yeah, their division. Sorry,
Okay,
not the whole. Sorry. No. No. Not the whole ACC. Their division. Maybe Virginia Tech, but I don't know that Coastal doesn't look great this year.
Yeah. Also, why is South Carolina? Like, I feel like sometimes they're a little underrated. They're never great, but I could see Florida having problems against them.
1,000%.
They're not ranked, but they're always that team.
What?
I said they're not ranked, but they're always that team that's like an 8 or 9 win team.
Yeah, they give people trouble.
Yeah.
I honestly, I could see them competing in the East maybe a little bit. But their end of schedule is so tough.
Yeah.
At A&M, and then they play Clemson. Yeah, though South Carolina beat UNC, whoever CHSO is, I don't even know. Lost to Alabama. Mizzou will be tough, but I think they'll beat Mizzou. At home against Kentucky, I think they'll win. They'll lose to Georgia. I honestly could see them at home beating Florida. I really could. Because like you said, they're a team that always kind of screws up everyone's,
They're always under. They're not great, but they're competitive. They're an 8 and 9 win team generally, and I think their passing game is expected to be pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. But guess we can go to the underrated teams.
Yes.
Spoiler: South Carolina. As much as I've just talked them up, they're not actually on it. My number 3 is actually going to probably shock you and many other people, but I'm gonna go ahead and say it. I think Michigan is just a little underrated. Just a little. Michigan.
Underrated.
Just a little. I think that they have a chance to be a top 4 team at the end of the season. So, Michigan, always good defensively. Shea Patterson is coming into his 2nd season in the program. You don't have to play against Urban Meyer anymore. He's not coaching for Ohio State, so maybe you could actually win that game for the first time in Jim Harbaugh's career. Part of me thinks that they're due for one. Like, maybe he actually loses his job if they lose to Ohio State for a 5th season in a row.
I'll say this: I bet you Jim Harbaugh loses his job this year.
You think so? I look at the rest of that conference, and I don't think that anyone really wows me. Penn State doesn't wow me. They don't play them, but Michigan State's not that great. They do play Notre Dame partway through the season. No, they do play Penn State. Sorry, they do. But they don't wow me. Notre Dame I think Michigan will win against them this year. Last year they lost at Notre Dame. This year it's at Michigan, and Notre Dame doesn't look as strong as they did last year. For as much as of a hard time as we give Notre Dame, pretty much everyone, they were a good team last year. They just really, really wet the bed in the college football playoffs. Maybe didn't deserve to be there, maybe did, but they were still a good team. This year I'm not seeing it as much. I think Michigan's clearly better than them. And I just think that Jim Harbaugh actually has a decent chance to beat Ohio State this year at home. In my opinion,
Against
against Ohio State.
against Justin Fields and J.K. Dobbins?
Against them, I think that they have a chance. Should they
Wow.
be favored? I don't know. Maybe not favored, but that's a team that I think I'm saying they're maybe a little underrated because most people would probably say that they're overrated. And I actually think that they're a legit team.
I had them at number 4 on my overrated list.
Really?
But, yeah.
Yeah. So I guess my overratedness is as a reaction to most people thinking that they're not as good as they are. So that's my third most overrated team. My number 2, and I actually hate to say this, is Texas. The reason I say that is, and I know a lot of Aggies don't want to hear this. I don't want to hear this, heck. But they won 10 games last year and beat Georgia. I'm not saying Georgia played at their best, but they did it. OU is supposed to be the conference champion this year. They did beat OU last year at least once. And OU loses the Heisman. I understand they bring Jalen Hurts in. But for as good as Jalen Hurts can be, he's not Kyler Murray. OU isn't nearly as much of a lock as they were last season. And so I think Texas plays LSU. I'm not going to say I expect them to win, but I think that they have a chance to win. I need to see the first game of the season to determine who I think is going to win that game at Austin. But other than that, the rest of the conference is actually kind of, I don't see any team that really should beat Texas this season. But, you never.
Exactly. You don't see any team that should beat Texas. That's the issue we run into with Texas.
Yeah.
That's. I almost had them on my underrated list. But my issue with Texas is every year we hear, "Oh, Texas is back."
Yeah, it's funny. It's very funny.
Oh, it's hilarious. It's hilarious. When I worked, the school I worked at before this year, all of my 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds, all their families were Texas fans. So every chance I got to rag on Texas, I would. But every year we hear Texas is back, and then they lose to Maryland.
Yeah. No, I agree.
So, so
that's why I think that LSU has a really good chance to win that first matchup between the two of them, because Texas actually starts off pretty pathetically in their at least the last 2 seasons they have. LSU doesn't start off amazing, but normally they start off at least somewhat close to being a relevant team. So there's that. But I'm looking at the teams ranked in front of Texas, and you've got Notre Dame. I think Texas is better than Notre Dame. You got Florida. I think Texas deserves to be better, higher rated than Florida. Mm-hmm. OU is 4. I think that you could make the case that Texas will beat OU in the Big 12 this season. You can make the case that Texas should be rated over Michigan. The only teams that I think that you really can't argue are Clemson, Bama, Georgia, Ohio State, and LSU at the moment. Mm-hmm. So you could really say that Texas deserves to be 6 if you really wanted to twist it. I just think that the conference is for the first time in a while open for them to actually upset OU. So that's my reason in saying that they're underrated. I don't think that they're like an amazing team. I think that many SEC teams could beat them. I think that, or at least make it close. I think that there are some Big 12 teams in there or Big 10 teams that could probably make it pretty close and even beat Texas. But I got to give them credit. They're starting to build a program that's actually is competent, and they have the chance to win their conference this season. Mm-hmm. And I'm not quite ready to say, but I almost do expect them to do it. We'll see. We'll see how I feel at the time. But they're my number 2. Mm-hmm. My number 1 team is actually one. They're not in the top 10. Iowa State is actually my number 1 underrated team. They actually were pretty good last season. They won for Iowa State standards. The standard is different for each team, right? Mm-hmm. Iowa State standard is pretty low. So them being at 21, last year they won 8 games. 21 might be a pretty high standard for them, but their quarterback last year actually was pretty good. Brock Purdy was a freshman, a true freshman, came in, played 10 games, completed 66.4% of his passes for 2,200 yards, 10 yards an attempt, and he threw a respectable 16 touchdowns to 7 interceptions on a team that you really don't normally hear much about. I think that his development this season, even if he does, just as well, Iowa State should be a team that, once again, I said Texas has a chance to win the Big 12. I think that Iowa State has a dark horse chance to win the Big 12. I wouldn't say that I expect them to do it, but they're a team with that. That's a conference that if you have a really good quarterback, you could beat anyone on any given week. And so I think that you could make the case that they have a better quarterback than both Texas and OU. You could make the case. So I could see them going from 8 wins to 10 wins, or, just being kind of a sleeper team. That's the reason why they're my number one.
Only issue with that is they lose their top 2 playmakers.
This is true.
That I definitely could see them being a dark horse and being higher than 21. But for me, the thing that worries me is you lose David Montgomery and Hakeem Butler. But again,
I think, obviously I think that they would be higher if they had those 2 guys. But
I agree.
I do, I'm a big believer in Brock Purdy, in the Big 12 at least. I think that he was someone. I wish that A&M got him, because when he was being recruited, it was down to Iowa State and A&M. Iowa State ended up winning that one, and now we're seeing him actually exploding in the Big 12, which, maybe that's not super hard to do, but as a freshman, I think that that's really respectable. As a sophomore, I only expect him to get better, regardless of who his weapons are. I think that he's going to end up carrying that offense to do pretty good things. And so I think that, let me think about the Big 12. You've got Texas and OU at the top. I think, honestly, I might say that Iowa State is just a little right, maybe. Yeah, I would say they're right behind them.
I agree. For sure. All right. My list.
Yep.
At number 3, underrated teams.
LSU.
Ohio State.
Okay.
Again, we talked about, before coming on the podcast, Mr. Justin Fields, who was the number 1 quarterback recruit a year ago as he went into Georgia. Georgia kind of wanted to stick with Mr. Jake Fromm.
Yeah.
So he transferred to Ohio State. Has a running back behind him that's at the very least projected to go in the top 3 rounds in the NFL. They're always great at recruiting. Yes, they don't have Urban Meyer. But again, I can't see anyone beating them. I honestly, hang on. Let's pull up their schedule here. I honestly have them going undefeated. I think Jim Harbaugh loses his job. I'm not as high on Michigan as.
So let me ask you a question. If Michigan goes 11-1, but loses to Ohio State, do you think that they fire him?
Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah.
I don't know if you could fire an 11-win team or a coach.
That's how important that is. That's how important that is. My stepmom, her entire family went to Michigan, and literally they only watch the Ohio State-Michigan game. I would say it's a big deal. I don't know. I guess we'd have to address that when we got to that point. But again, either way, I think 5 is pretty low. I think Georgia's a little overrated. I think Oklahoma is going to be a little bit overrated because I don't think Jalen Hurts is used to not having to score a whole bunch of points because his defense was probably the greatest ever. That's not going to be the case at Oklahoma. So I could see Oklahoma losing a couple high-scoring games.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it. Jalen Hurts is also used to playing against teams that can defend the pass. I could see him lighting it up in the Big 12, but I just don't see him lighting it up the same way that Kyler Murray or Baker Mayfield did. Mm-hmm. Georgia, I do think, is a slight overrated team, but they still are one of the most talented teams in the country, and could beat Alabama with that talent. So I do think that I respect their ranking, but I agree with you on Ohio State. I think that Michigan and Ohio State are at least close this year. Mm-hmm. The reason I had Michigan underrated is only because I don't think that people are giving them really much of a chance to win that conference. Mm-hmm. And I think they have a chance to win that conference.
Okay.
A pretty decent one. But Ohio State, I think, should be favored. Ohio State, as you said, Justin Fields, everyone's talking about Trevor Lawrence. Justin Fields was comparable to Trevor Lawrence. People actually, it was a toss-up between who was the better quarterback in that class. And the only reason that Justin Fields hasn't shown it yet is because they had an established quarterback already in Jake Fromm. Yeah. And so him going to Ohio State, I think that's a great team for him because he's super talented. Mm-hmm. He has great talent around him. I think that I would probably say I would put them at number 3. Was that your number 1 most underrated team or your number 2?
That was... What am I on? I'm so confused now. Because I switched my... That was my number... That was...
You know what?
Yeah, that was my number 3 rated team, underrated team.
Okay.
At number 2, my boys in the Bayou.
I'm mad at you.
They're gonna win the SEC this year.
Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh.
LSU will win the SEC this year. How
are they going to do that when they lose to Texas A&M?
They're definitely not losing to Texas A&M. Most definitely not.
Oh, man.
It took 7 overtimes and some fluke LSU celebrating too early, and this was on the road last year.
Do you think that with what's the coach's name? I'm sorry, I'm forgetting his name.
Ed Orgeron.
Do you think with Ed Orgeron, y'all are going to win the SEC?
Yep.
He's a decent coach.
I do.
So you think y'all are going to make the? Oh, actually, you know what? Let's save that. Why don't once you're done with your list, let's predict our top 4. Are you good with that? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. You know.
I'm mad at you. What are you doing?
Let me read your schedule. Texas, that's a win. Vandy, that's a win. Florida, that's a win. Mississippi State, that's a win. Auburn, that's a win. Bama, that's a win. Ole Miss, that's a win. Texas A&M, that's a win. We don't even have to play Georgia.
Well, you will if you win all of these games.
Yeah.
But I just want to point out something to you. Let me ask you, when's the last time y'all did beat Bama?
2011.
Okay, so
hang on. Let me be exact. Yeah, 2011.
Okay, so it's not that you can't beat them again because of that, but it seems like Nick Saban, is hard for any LSU coach to stop. So there's that. But more recently, where did y'all play the LSU Alabama game last season?
In Baton Rouge.
And how many points did y'all score?
0.
So you're going to go from scoring 0 points with the same quarterback,
Yep.
with a same offense pretty much,
Yep.
to at home, 0 points at home, to
Yep.
going to Alabama
Yep.
with the same quarterback and
Yep.
same offensive weapons. No
Yep.
Devin White, but probably still a decent defense. I'm not going to lie.
Devin White missed the first half of the Alabama game. But,
He's going to miss both halves of this game because he's going to. So
Yep.
you're going to go there and
Yep.
and put points on the board actually this time and
Yep.
win.
Yep.
Okay.
And I'll even go this far. We're going to shut them out.
Okay. I'm going to call 911 right now.
Actually, I'll give them 3 points. 13-3.
That's your number 2 most underrated team. Who's your number 1? Who is your number 1?
Texas, for the same reasons that you said.
Wait a minute. I hate you because you said you were like kind of giving me flack for it a little bit. Oh man.
I switched LSU and Texas midway through because LSU is number 6, so it's not really like they're like no one's really necessarily talking about them.
Uh-huh.
But they're number 6, so it's not like I can be like, oh, they're so underrated. But yeah, for the same reasons you said, I think Texas wins that conference. I think I would even go as far to say maybe I could see Iowa State finishing second over Oklahoma. But yeah, I think Texas. I'll say this. I think I could see Texas sneaking into the college football playoff.
I hate to say that and I hate to hear that, but I think that I could see it too. I really could. And I don't think they are legitimately a top 4 team in the country.
I don't either.
But based on where they are ranked right now and based on where they could end up being ranked, I actually think that they could be a little underrated by the end of the season. So maybe they're not underrated by my definition, but they're a possible surprise team, if you will. That's what my list is. I think my list, I would consider them more of surprise teams versus possible busts.
Perfect. Mine too.
Great.
Too. Like you going undefeated and going to the college football playoff.
That would be a huge surprise. If you ask anyone. So let's go ahead and then just real quick give our top 4 predictions. I'll go ahead and I'll start it at 1 because we all know who the top 2 teams are probably going to be. Well, actually, no, we don't because you have a team. Anyway, Clemson is my number 1. I would probably predict them to be number 1 because, I thought maybe they could lose to Texas A&M. The more I think about that, you're probably right. Trevor Lawrence is probably going to have a really good performance against A&M's maybe average secondary. If I'm going to be, I don't know where I'd put them right now. But I'll say they're average. I'll say
that's being kind.
Yeah, I say they might be average. We'll see. But Clemson number 1. I'm going to go ahead. I'll say Alabama probably gets ranked number 2, but I actually think that Ohio State. What? Screw it. Clemson, Ohio State, Alabama.
Who's number 4?
Number 4. I wasn't prepared to say number 4 just yet, but goodness, oh my gosh, Hayden. Texas is going to be the number 4 team. Man, you think I want to see Texas at number 4? I'm just looking at this. So theoretically, Michigan loses to Ohio State in this. They could be. I think that they honestly win the other 11 games, but them losing to Ohio State takes them out of being able to win the conference because they're in the same division.
Yep.
So you're not undefeated. You don't win the division or the conference. You're not probably going to make it into the top 4. Probably just miss out. Florida, I already said, is underrated or overrated. LSU, I have been losing to Alabama, possibly even A&M. Oklahoma, I'm saying, is not as good as Texas at where we stand right now. Let's see. That leaves Notre Dame, who I don't think is very good. I think Texas is better than them. And then beyond that, I just really don't see that many teams who could make a run for the top 4. Maybe I could see that. I could see maybe Michigan and Texas being an argument if Texas has one loss, but ultimately them being a division champion or a conference champion, I think puts them in the 4th spot.
Question.
Yeah.
If LSU only loses to Alabama, could they make the playoff?
They could. I think it would have to go something like this. If Alabama loses the conference championship to Georgia, but say LSU, does LSU beat Georgia? Or do they play Georgia?
They don't play Georgia this year.
Okay, so they don't play Georgia, but say Georgia loses to, I don't know, they have a 1-loss record against, I don't know, say they lose to Florida or A&M or
they get upset somewhere.
They get upset by someone. I think that you could possibly see 2 teams end up making it into the or it could go like that, or it could go LSU loses to Alabama, Alabama wins the conference championship, and Georgia already has 1 loss going into that championship game. So they end up having 2 losses on their resume. And so it's between LSU and, say, a few other teams, and LSU gets that final spot. I could see that happening.
Okay. All right. Are you ready for mine?
Yes.
Number 1 team in the country is the Tigers of Clemson. of Clemson. Clemson's number 1. I don't think that's close. Number 2. Number 2 is Ohio State. Number 3 LSU. Yes. Finally, I made him quit, guys. He gave up. He gave up.
You can continue. I'm just not going to listen.
Guys, you want to know what's funny? I don't actually have LSU going undefeated.
I heard that.
I'm sorry. I have them losing once, and it's to Alabama.
I'm just glad that you're not on drugs.
For everything you said, like you said, do I think Joe Burrow is any sort of fantastic quarterback? No. But I think he has enough of kind of the it factor to beat everyone else but Alabama, especially in Tuscaloosa. I honestly think it won't even be Alabama's defense this year. I think we'll score. I just think Tua and Jerry Jeudy is going to be too much. We don't necessarily have a great corner. We have Grant Delpit, who plays safety, but can't really put him on their best guy like we have had in years past. So my list goes Clemson, Ohio State, Alabama, and I'm going to say LSU gets in there with 1 loss.
Okay. Actually, I'm going to change mine up a little bit.
Okay.
Same 4 teams, but I'm thinking about this now. I actually think that if Ohio State goes undefeated and wins their conference, I'm gonna put them over Clemson only because Clemson, they were number one. Were they number one this year? Or were they number two to Alabama?
They were number 2, I want to say.
So they were number two. Alabama had a higher. They just had a tougher schedule because they're in the SEC.
Yeah.
The ACC is nothing special.
Yeah.
Clemson's two toughest teams on their schedule as of now are Texas A&M, which is a pretty good game that I would say is not as good of a game as versus Michigan, and then Syracuse. And other than that, they really don't play that many. They don't play any ranked teams, and I don't think that there's any team on there that's really good. So, not saying they won't finish in the playoffs. Obviously, I think they will.
Do they play Virginia Tech this year?
No,
they did.
No.
They don't even play Virginia. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm switching Ohio State because I think Ohio State will have a little bit higher of a resume that the committee will probably say, but
I'm good. I'm good with that.
Maybe Bama would be over them if that's the case. But anyway,
yeah.
Those are my top 4 teams. So there's that. We can talk about Zeke real quick, but I do need to make it quick.
Yeah. Let's just save Zeke. Let's save Zeke until more stuff comes out. Because all we can really say is that Jerry Jones.
I actually do have some thoughts that are a little. They would be a little shocking to some people. But yeah, I don't know that I have the time.
Yeah.
Today, so
yeah.
Why don't we leave this on a cliffhanger for everybody? Yeah. Today is just a college football playoffs topic. Not a college football playoffs, just college football in general. We gave you our most overrated, underrated teams. We talked about a little just reactions and ultimately gave you our top 4 teams in the country. And I'm glad Hayden is not on drugs. So there's that. But that's all we have for today. Stay tuned because later we will probably talk about the Cowboys and we'll probably talk a little bit more about other football teams as well, being that that's getting closer. Hopefully there could be NBA rumors somewhere in there too. We don't know. It's kind of a dead period for them. But
also, let's give a brief teaser to this. Next Sunday is our fantasy draft, and yours truly is going for his 4th title in a row. I have picked their asses for 3 years in a row.
Allow me to say something real quick. I was only in the league last season. So 2 years before, I wasn't in this conversation.
Kennedy's ass for only 1 season. I've been kicking Ian's ass.
You could chalk that up to a fluke. The rest of them, no. You beat them fair and square. Me.
See. Okay, so we're gonna do kind of not really about anything in general, but more about us personally. As we're gonna go through all of the fantasy teams, we're gonna rank the best, the worst, and we'll pick division winners, right? Because we have divisions.
Do we have divisions?
Yeah.
We could do something like that. We'll talk about the fantasy teams. And maybe this will be entertaining to some of y'all. I hope I hope that we could get a audience of our fantasy league. They better watch this.
Honestly, we could get some of the fantasy people on here. If Ian ever decides to come back, apparently, he's okay. So guys, for those of y'all that don't know, Ian hasn't been on. His computer's broken. Apparently, he's getting that fixed today. Hopefully he'll be able to get on for that one. I really cannot wait to rub it in his face that I beat him for 3 years in a row. We're going to see if we can get a couple of the other people in the group in the fantasy league to go through with that. I know Spencer's been talking about wanting to come on. So yeah.
Yep. I'm excited. But thank you for listening. Follow us on Twitter at Lunch Sports, me at Kennedy Curley 44. Curley is Curley, and Hayden Klinkhammer at That Boy Klink, capital T, capital B, capital K. Yeah! Thank you for listening, and we'll be back in the next few days. So stay tuned. Yes. All right.